Thanks, Morgan. Thank you for organizing this. Thanks to our sport development division for creating so much content for our community and for swimming. Thanks to everybody for being here. I'm really excited about this one. Last week I thought was great. And being here and seeing so many people and the engagement and the questions that are being asked always inspires me. So thank you so much for being here and for taking the time out of your week and your day. This week we'll be talking about backstroke, and next week we'll be doing breaststroke, and then the last Tuesday in May we'll be doing freestyle. So I'm really excited about that. I'm just going to jump right into the content because there's a little bit that I want to cover today. Um, it's funny. Last week I talked about the butterfly revolution, and in prepping for this talk, this was actually the first revolution that we did in terms of talking about and dissecting a stroke and talking about how we train it and how we race it. And this was the USA backstroke revolution back in 2007. And looking through that presentation and the material that I covered over 10 years ago, a lot of it is very much the same. There's so much similarities, which is great. I love that the basics of the mechanics have not changed that much, and the foundation of what we're talking about hasn't changed that much. I do think that is great for our sport and for our teachings, that we can have a stable base of information that people use to teach strokes and to coach. So I'm excited that, all this material is updated in terms of videos and how I word it. So, if you've heard me give this talk anytime over the last 12 to 13 years, the material will be a little bit different, but a lot of the foundation is the same, which I'm really excited about. And the way that I've shaped the talk, and actually that's probably what's most different when I go from year to year in talks, is how I organize the thoughts and what I prioritize and how I kind of shape everything around the stroke. And the very first thing I'm going to talk about is what I think is the most important part, and that is the catch. And everything about backstroke needs to be shaped around the catch. You need to have this catch. How do you get the best catch? And how do you shape all the other aspects of the stroke around it? So rotation is not the most important thing. How does the rotation impact the catch? And what are you doing to make sure that the catch and the integrity of the catch is preserved? The finish of the stroke, tempo of the stroke, and your kick. Everything is, I would say, just as important, but it has to not compromise what you're doing in the catch. So let's take a look. Obviously, you have this image right here, but let me walk through what that looks like, and there will be a few slides on the catch that go through that. So this is the catch from the front view and a side view, and you can see what these arm positions are. And having this in your mind and then being able to try to do this and get to this position is the most important part. And so the first thing is that I cue up on is having your palms face towards your feet at all times. There is no point when your palm should be facing down towards the bottom of the pool. So from the point when your hand enter, your wrist will bend so that your palms will face towards your feet, and your forearms will then move that way too and start pushing water towards your feet. That is the objective of the stroke, is to move forward. So you're trying to push water backwards as early as possible. And that's what you're trying to do in the catch. So again, how do you shape the rest of the stroke so you can create this environment in your backstroke? Second thing in the catch, I think, is really important. You're not just wanting to push water in the right direction, but you want to do it in the strongest way possible. And you do that with your upper arm. So from your shoulder to your elbow, this part right here, shoulder to elbow, being in close line with your back. So this part of your body from shoulder to shoulder. And everybody will have a natural range where they can feel comfortable with their arm a little bit behind the line of their back, but you don't want to push that range too far, because the further you move your arm behind your back, the weaker that stroke will be. So having your upper arm in close line with your back so that you can have that arm being the strongest position possible. Having your elbow bent wider than 90 degrees, a little bit wider than 90 degrees. I'm not going to give an exact angle of what that is because it's pretty hard for, I think people can recognize, in motion, people can recognize what 90 degrees is, but then after that, it's a little bit wider and more narrow. So like, I'm just going to generally say a little bit wider than 90 degrees. And then the last part of this position that you're trying to achieve is having your fingertips pointing away from the body. So having your fingers point towards the side of the pool and having all of these 4 qualities is what you're trying to get in the catch and as early as possible to push water back towards your feet. Let's take a look at this in motion now. And again, just like last week, video can be a little bit choppy over the internet and through this Zoom connection. So I'm going to pause it at key points and hopefully hopefully people will get this, be able to see exactly what I'm showing at points. At first time through, I'm going to just let it play through and hopefully some people at least can see it in full motion. But now I'm going to pause it just so people can see what I'm talking about. And again, it's the early flexion of the hand and the wrist and the forearm in order to get that palm facing towards the feet. And then fingertips are clearly pointing towards the side of the pool, clearly pointing towards us, towards the camera. And that is pushing water back towards your feet. And the hand isn't shallow. The hand isn't pushing down towards the bottom of the pool. It is, the palm is clearly facing back towards your feet, facing the opposite the direction you want to go. So water back towards your feet. So critical right here. And I'm okay. You see different depths of the catch. And this athlete again right here, entry, the palm facing towards the feet very quickly soon after entry. And this athlete's catch is a little bit deeper, but you don't see the palm pushing down towards the bottom of the pool. And again, just pushing water back. And I think that is the critical part that you're looking for. And again, I'm just focusing on the catch right now, but this is what I want to shape the stroke around. And we're going to move towards the other aspects as well. So if you have questions about that, I will cover it for sure. But again, like just seeing these parts in motion or in pieces of motion as I pause and move through each of these clips. It's fingertips pointing towards the side of the pool, palm facing back. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is the foundation for a great backstroke, and we have been so fortunate in the United States to have so many phenomenal backstrokers, and this is a quality that every single one of them has, is this early catch, pushing water back. And yes, again, like I said, you see different depths of it. But regardless, if you want to have a deeper hand, it's not your palm pushing water down towards the bottom of the pool. And that's where I'm going to go in this next slide. And so palms facing the feet, don't push water down. And this is going to play through. And again, I'll pause it and then cover different points in it. So entry, and you see the athlete on the bottom, how the palm will push water down. And this is so common. And one of the reasons why this happens is because like when you do this, when an athlete pushes water down, you feel pressure on your shoulder. And that pressure on the shoulder, I think a lot of people mistake it for pushing water in the right way and for trying hard. And you're trying to engage your entire body, not just trying to engage your shoulder. So pushing water down, this is not moving water in the direction you want to go. And I think it's really a lot more common than people think. So let's look at, again, don't push water down. Don't reach behind your body. That is the number one thing. You're trying to be in the strongest position too. And the further you reach behind your body, the weaker that arm stroke gets. And think about it. If you're standing on the ground if you're standing up and you have a ball in your hand, you're holding it over your head, and you're trying to throw it down towards the ground, how are you going to do that? You're not going to reach behind your body to make that throw. You're going to be connected to your body either over to the side of your body or in front of your body when you make that throw. And that is exactly what you're trying to do with this initial part of the stroke, is throw the water towards your feet. And how do you get into the strongest position to do that? And you have to maintain some discipline and coach that. I'm okay if you want to coach a shallow pull. I'm okay if you want to have your arms more to the side. You know, when I watch little kids swim at a very early age, there's zero rotation and their arms just basically push water down to the side. I think that is an awesome foundation for people to shape their stroke from, because it is pretty technically correct and technically efficient. Again, so hopefully you can see the difference, and it's intentionally not trying to push water deep. We'll look at this one more time from another angle, and then we'll move on to other aspects of the stroke. So this is looking at it from the front view and the side view simultaneously, the same athlete. So entry, entry, and here's that initial catch position. Where's the hand? It's out to the side of the body. It's pretty shallow, fingertips pointing away from the body towards the side of the pool. The arm to the side is the strongest. Like I said, we're not just trying to push water back, but we're trying to do that in the strongest position possible. And these two things definitely work together, having the arm to the side. As I mentioned in a few slides ago, having the upper arm in close line with the back, and you could see that same thing right here. You see the arm, the upper arm being in a very close line to the back. You don't see the arm reaching behind the body. Engage your core. I do not, this is like the smallest bullet point that I have on the catch, but this is advanced catch. This is the key to unlocking the full depth and full power and full strength of your catch, is engaging your core in this position right here. It is really hard to show on video, but you know, when I talk about engaging your core, it's when you get this catch, you can think about tightening your abs. You can think about being tight through your core. Basically, when you're in this catch position, trying to feel it all the way through the diagonal of your body, through the other hip, the opposite hip. How do you do that? And it's engaging your core, tightening your abs, being in like this, you know, kind of almost crunch feeling. And so that when you're in a catch position, you feel it on your opposite hip. And that's what you're trying to do. And that is how you turn good mechanics into the most effective swimming, is through moving, feeling that arm and feeling it through your body. And again, like I would say that's like catch 2.0. That is next level catch. But the initial part is having the mechanics down. And then how do you make the arm mechanics connect to your body the best? And I think that is what, that is how you take it to the next level. But again, the first thing is everything I've talked about to this point in terms of where your hands need to be and how you get to this position. So now let's talk about other aspects of the stroke that you will obviously have to do that will impact the catch and you need to consider in order to get to this position. So head and body position. This is real hard to show on video, so I have these drawings. And in the top drawing, basically is when you have a hollow chest and a rounded back. And the bottom drawing is having an arched back and having your head, pushing your head pretty far back. And the top one is where we want to be. Hollow chest, rounded back. And I'll talk about that. And I know having the arched back is, you know, especially for young kids, is a very easy way to try to keep your hips up, because that's what you're trying to do as a little kid, is trying to, you're trying to teach these little kids to keep their hips high. And so having arch back and pushing your head back and kind of using that balance in your body is an easy way to get that done. But it's definitely not the best way in order to have the best backstrokes. And so let's talk about what the hollow chest and rounded back does in opposite to what the arched back does. Let's talk about what the head position should look like. It's slightly tilted, like resting your head on a thin pillow. And that, I can't think of a better analogy actually than that. So hopefully that makes sense. Resting your head on a thin pillow is what you're trying to do in backstroke. You're not, obviously not just your chin tucked and not pushing your head way back. When you have your hollow chest and rounded back, this gives you that best chance to have your core engaged, to be in that kind of crunch, tight abs position. And if you have your back arched, you can't do that. You can't engage your core that way. Your legs move freely and can kick effectively when you're in this position as well. And when you have that arch back, your hips are in kind of this locked position, and it's just really hard to be kicking freely with an arch back. Again, I mean, it's not the most equal analogy, but if you're running, think about if you're running with an arched back, it's just so hard to get that full stride and to get that free leg movement that you're trying to get. And again, just trying to have hollow back, rounded back, hollow chest. And then the last thing, the hips will stay under the surface if you have your kick going in this position. I actually think the hips are lower when you end up with an arch back. When you're in that when you have an arch back, your hips will end up lower because of just the natural position of where your body ends up. Let's talk about rotation now. And obviously that's a big topic that has been about backstroke for a long time. I did this image years ago, and it hasn't changed much through all the great backstrokes that we've had over the last 2 decades. And we're talking a maximum rotation. This is all these backstrokers in their maximum rotation of 20 to 30 degrees. And what does that mean? I mean, because again, I talked about like people have a hard time understanding where their arms are and what degrees their arms are bent. But basically it means you're staying more on your back than you're on your side. 90 degrees means you're totally on your side. 45 degrees is halfway between on your back and on your side. You are more on your back than you are on your side when you're rotated 20 to 30 degrees. Basically, like I said, you're trying to shape the rotation around the ideal catch. And with the catch, you're just trying to have your arm out to the side. You don't need to have your shoulders rotated vertically in order to get the best catch. You're just trying to have it rotated enough so that you can get into the good catch. And that's what I'm saying right here. You're just trying to rotate enough so that the shoulder is in a position where your arms can reach that good catch. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not gonna spend much more time on how much you're rotating. What's really important is when you're rotating. And rotating early, rotating on time is more important than how much you rotate. Rotating on time is more important than how much you're rotating. And to me, a late rotation is the biggest culprit in so many issues in backstroke. When you see an athlete, if you have an issue, if you see an athlete enter with their hand above their head, so like really narrow, and enter with the back of their hand, that is an issue with late rotation. I used to say that's what I see. That is like 100% of the time, that's what's happening. So it's not even just what I'm seeing. That is exactly what's happening. And when you enter above your head or enter with the back of your hand and you have a late rotation, it often leads to the athlete pushing downward with their palm. So let's play this in video and see what this looks like. This is what everybody sees, back of the hand entry, entering narrow. And you see, when I say late rotation, this athlete is still rotated to the other side. So they're entering with their right arm and they're rotated still to the left side. that is a late rotation. And I hope everyone understands what that means. So rotating earlier is the key. And again, I'll play this through. You'll see how this athlete kind of rolls into their position to get this catch. But most times people will enter narrow right here and just hand down and try to push their hand down in order to get that rotation right. So let's look at this again. And this is two different views. So the top and the bottom are two different athletes. And we'll take a look. So this is the time when the hand is entering. And you can see it's pretty subtle, the difference. But the top athlete, you see that the hand is entering right above their head, right in front of their head, and the back of the hand is entering. And you see where they're rotating. They're rotated to the other side. So the right hand is entering, and they're still rotated to the left side. This athlete right here, their hand is entering, and they're flat at this point. And you could see their hand is entering right above their shoulder, where you want it to enter. And the athlete gets right into this catch. Whereas this athlete up top has to kind of wait for the rotation to get into their catch. Play that again. Hopefully this makes sense. And again, that's what it is, a late rotation to get into the catch and to get that proper hand entry. You can tell athletes all you want, and it's, you know, the fact that in order to make that correction, like often in when we try to correct someone with a narrow hand entry, we tell them to exaggerate it, to go to like, think of themselves as entering at 2 o'clock on the clock. And the fact that that often still doesn't fix it shows that that is not the actual, like, that itself is not what is causing that entry issue. It is caused by something else, and it's a late rotation. So rotate earlier, and you can get to this catch position, and you can get to that proper entry a whole lot better. I think I have one more slide on this. Hopefully that shows. Yes. So from above water, there is a cue that I definitely look at. And this one is going to be probably a little bit harder to see, especially if you have a bad internet connection or if it's just not going over well on Zoom. But I look at armpits. When I'm looking at backstrokers from above water and I'm looking at rotations, the first thing I'm looking at is I'm staring at people's armpits, as weird as that sounds. And good backstrokers can get their armpits down when they enter. And if you just look at this video, and let it play all the way through in case some people do have a good connection. You watch the armpits. And these first two athletes, the armpits get down really, really well. And the last athlete, the armpit is up slightly delayed. And that is when I see, you can see a late rotation from above water. So I'll pause it now. Oops. All right. So I'll pause it on the entry. And you see where this armpit is. It is entering at the same time that his hand is entering. Next athlete. Armpit is down when the hand is entering. Oops. Play this all the way through. Sorry, this video is not going, this video part isn't going as smoothly. Okay, so this athlete is entering and you see that armpit still up. And that is, and I don't know if it's me and this is what I'm staring at when I'm watching backstroke, but to me it is very, very noticeable. And I think, again, the reason why this is important is because it impacts the catch. And the reason why the narrow hand entry is important is because it impacts the catch. So all of these things impact the catch, and that's why we're talking about it. And that's the reason to fix it. And again, like, let's just try to play through this last athlete as their arm is coming over. And again, just the armpit staying up is to me a sign that they're rotating a little bit late and then possibly not able to get into the catch as early as possible. So how do we rotate a little bit earlier? To me, it's using your finish to rotate early. And a lot of people will think of the finish as just just part of the propulsive part of the stroke. But so this finish will then push the hips over the top. And let me pause it at a good spot. So yeah, so the finish pushes the hips to roll over, and which causes a big part of the rotation. Most people will just rotate, think of rotation from the top, from the entering arm shoulder. You need to think of it as both actions, the entering arm and the finishing arm. That's what's causing the finish. And that's what's also going to give you that kind of diagonal connection and engagement across your body. So again, let me pause it. So it's with the finish, downward and inward follow through with your hand. So following through with the pull, downward and inward, will give you that motion that will pop your hips over to the other side. It'll help you rotate right into the next entry of the next stroke. And like I said, feeling the finish across the diagonal of your body. So basically, as you're finishing, you're engaged with your core and you're finishing and basically pushing that hip over and then feeling that into the entry of your next stroke. So feeling it across your body. And that is, like I said, the key to a great backstroke. And it is hard to visualize and hardest to conceptualize, but that is so important. And I think that's, you know, I could talk about the mechanics, but if you want to take your backstroke to the next level, it is using your body. That is what's doing it. So I have just 2 more slides. This is full stroke backstroke. And basically it'll show from the catch into the finish. And you'll see that the finish is below the hips. And we talk, you know, that is kind of talked about age-old traditional teachings. And yes, but let's talk about what that does. So yes, you're pushing water all the way through from the catch is so critical because you're pushing water all the way through, pushing water back, and then you pass your, let's say your chest, and then you start pushing water downward and inward. And finishing below the hips, the full extension is slightly out to the side of the body is what I'm seeing. So you're finishing a little bit wide, not finishing right next to your hips. And then basically the next movement is as your hand is lifting up to exit the water, then it's coming right next to your body. So the finish is a little bit away from your body. And I should show this from the front view videos. And you'll be able to see that the finish is, that full extension is slightly away from the body. And then as your hand is lifting up to exit the water is when the hand comes right next to your body, right next to your hip. And so let's just take a look at this again, all the way through. Catch, pushing water back, passing your chest and your torso, I would say. And then it starts pushing water down and back. Again, this finish isn't the most optimally propulsive, but it'll pop your hips to the other side so that you can get to the next all-important catch of your stroke. Hopefully that makes sense. And then last slide, and it just walk through another full stroke. So entry into finish, entry, catch, and then that downward follow through. So entry, palms face towards the feet, fingers face towards the side, engage your core, pushing water, bending your elbow, trying to wrap your arms around the water. Up high, pushing water back towards your feet. As your hand passes your chest and your torso, comes that downward follow through, downward and inward follow through below your hips. And let's talk about, I think this is important, preserving your stroke with tempo. And every backstroker at some point will ramp up their tempo. And I think in order to not compromise the technical aspects of your stroke, it's not just spinning your arms. That is the easy thing to do. In order to be fully engaged, you need to make sure that your rotation speed matches your arm speed. So if you're just spinning your arms, you'll end up just pulling with just your shoulders. But by moving and by having your rotation match that and having your rotation be the same speed, that is how you're going to be fully engaged at a higher tempo. And I think that's really important, is it's not just spinning and it's not just throwing your arms, which is the absolute easiest thing to do. To be fully effective, it's with engaging your core and by making sure that your tempo, your rotation matches your arm speed. And very often, like I said, your arms can leave your body rotation behind. And it's not, again, it's not so much how much you're rotating, but making sure you're rotating on time. And so often you see athletes, I see athletes just spinning out and then it's not as efficient, obviously, but then there's a reason for that. And it's because your body isn't keeping up with it. And I think it's, yeah, you have to keep your core tight and you have to keep your body pivoting from side to side. And I would say generally that's a better way to think about it, is it's a pivot, a tight pivot from side to side. And you're going boom, 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 boom. And it's not just a slow rotation from side to side. You are just popping at the ends of the stroke if you're doing it right. And again, we'll just watch this one more time before we take any questions. And I know there's a couple things that I didn't cover. The mechanics of the kick. The kick is obviously very, very important. And just trying to throw water off your toes towards the surface is a great way to think about that and trying to get that full extension. There's other things that we can address in the questions too. Obviously, an athlete that's bouncing, I would say that a bouncing athlete has an issue with maybe pushing their head a little bit too high, and so they constantly are falling backwards. Or a lot of times I see a bouncing athlete, they're driving their hand really deep, and so it's pushing them back. But then when they lift their arm out of the water, they're lifting their shoulder out. So you have these two opposing things. You have your arm lifting out of the water, and that's causing the athlete to rise up, and then driving the arm down is causing the athlete to fall back. So again, it's like doing things that will not lift you up, I think is a big thing to not cause that bounce. And I think if you're entering and then changing direction, that's what you're trying to hit in the catch. It's enter, change direction, not enter and follow all the way through with that hand. Enter, change direction out to the side. So this was a slide from the end of my 2007 Backstroke Revolution talk, is how we end it, like obviously a great tradition in backstroke. So with this, I just thought I would bring that back, revisit this awesome slide and a lot of our great history. But I know our performance consultants have been taking questions through this, but if there's any remaining, happy to field any questions for a couple minutes. We just have a few minutes that we can then move on. But hopefully this, obviously we want to try to keep these short to like 20, 25 minutes, and just trying to give some people some good basic info.
Russell, there's a lot of questions about what's the best tempo for 100 and 200 backstroke? Yeah,
and I'd say rather than focusing, so unlike fly, I mentioned like a very narrow band of tempos and for successful swimming, and in backstroke you see a lot more variation. I think the focus in backstroke tempo is to be able to identify a tempo that you can maintain over the course of a length. And so it's not so much like what specific tempo that you're trying to hit. I think that's a lot more individual in backstroke than it is in fly, whereas fly, like everybody was in that kind of 1.1 to 1.2 range. And in backstroke, you see a lot of variation. And so again, it's identifying a tempo that you can maintain for 50 meters. And this is difficult. Long course and short course backstroke are very different. You're taking so many less cycles in short course, and so you basically have a lot less to maintain. And in long course, you have to maintain it a whole lot longer. So rather than coming out and hitting it really hard initially on the breakout, you have to be able to balance that. And I think that is more important when it comes to backstroke tempo, is find your mechanics and then find your tempo that you can hold those mechanics over the course of whether it's, you know, your 25 short course or 50 long course length. Any other questions?
Yeah, we had a question about rotation and the difference between rotation at different ages. And as an age group coach, should we be more focused on getting them to rotate more or getting them to rotate less?
I think I mentioned this, I think the natural, what you see in young backstrokers and little kids is that they will rotate so little and that they will stay on their back. And I think that is, they will just stay super flat. And I feel like the goal is just give them a little bit rotation. And what I often see is people teaching little kids to rotate all the way to their side. And then when they get to the older age, I see them not being able to engage their catch very well because they're rotated so much. Or I even see, honestly, I see a little bit of shoulder issues too because of people trying to reach way deep because they're trying to get this big rotation. I am a huge advocate and proponent for a much flatter backstroke. You know, when you're rotating very little, again, you're trying to also prevent people from having their arm reach behind their back too. So, you know, keep that in mind is where that arm is relative to their back. And if an athlete just is super flat and just pushes, you know, with a straight arm out to the side, there's something to build off right there. Like that just has to be tweaked with a little bit of rotation and a little bit of catch and a little bit of elbow bend. Anything else?
Yeah, there was another question about hand position on entry. So what part of the hand should enter to get into that catch as quickly as possible?
Yeah, and I'm all with tradition on this one with trying to enter with your pinky and trying to enter pinky first. And to me, like I mentioned, that has everything to do with your rotation timing. And if you're not able to do that, just to me, it's just trying to rotate over a little bit earlier. I mean, think about it. If your shoulder is up, and you can do this on dry land, if your right shoulder is up and you try to have your arm over your head, where is your hand easiest going to be when you're entering? It's probably going to be, it's so hard to have your right shoulder up and then be able to enter pinky first at the same time. So yes, try to get that shoulder down. And, you know, when I talk about rotation on the downside, and I'll mention this again, like on the underwater side, it's 20 to 30 degrees under the surface. On the above water side, it's 20 to 30 degrees over the surface. So we're not talking shoulders getting in front of your chin. You're talking shoulders staying out to the side of your face and like just brushing the side of your face, not getting in front of your cheek, not getting in front of your face. I think that's really important to note. Great questions. We'll do one more.
Mark, put yourself on mute.
And if we don't have any more, we can just end it right here. You know, my email was on that slide. All the performance consultants are also available too. I'll let Morgan close it out. And yeah, appreciate everyone being here. And hopefully that was helpful.